Hey, you nerds, welcome to Under the Hood. I'm Jishnu, and this week we're talking about The Office. Now, despite the fact that it's been off the air since 2013, the US version of The Office continues to be one of the most beloved sitcoms of all time. If anything, the show has been in a huge resurgence since, well, the era of the internet. And you've definitely come across a couple that you can call a Jim or a Pam, because you love them or you find them totally annoying, whichever. They're pretty much the same thing. Which brings us to a very simple question. Why do we all still love The Office? Tejas and Dinkar?
Oh, you're asking us?
Yes.
Amazing. All right. The Office is a great show. Boom. That's my hot take on it.
Good episode.
Why are people still watching it apart from the fact from just regular syndication and Netflix and it being proliferated on all these streaming sites and stuff?
I don't think that alone accounts for how popular it is.
Yeah.
Because, a lot of sitcoms are still around, right? It's the fact that the characters in the US Office in particular are so, lovable, essentially. I'm
Yes.
firmly in the Jim and Pam are awesome camp, by the way. I
Yeah,
disagree
so
with you
am I.
completely on that, Jishnu.
Wait,
I
Jishnu,
cannot
you
believe
didn't
you
say-
said that.
He didn't
said
say
either.
it.
I said you can be whichever one you want.
But he
it
did say
depends on
both
the
of them are
couple.
the same.
Yeah, you said both of them are the same. I think Jim and Pam are
I
awesome.
think it depends on the day.
They had their issues and they worked
Every
through
couple
them
depends
towards
on
the end
it.
of the show. But yeah, the fact is you really like a Jim and a Pam. Like a crucial thing that the US Office did that I think transformed it in the early seasons was Michael Scott went from being like an annoyingly daft guy to
an
an
empathetic,
enduringly
yeah.
daft guy.
Yeah.
Right? And by the end of it, you really felt for Michael. So it essentially became a redemption story for him. He gets a happy ending,
Yeah.
which never happens in the original version of The Office where Ricky Gervais pretty much remains a joke.
It does kind of
In the Christmas
happen.
special.
Yes. No, in
in
the David Brent Life on-
David Brent Life on the
Yes,
But that
Road.
also doesn't
possibly.
end happily.
It doesn't end happily, but he's
it's not terrible.
He's found
he
some
found
peace.
exactly.
Yeah, yeah,
he
which
gets
is
closure.
important.
Exactly.
He gets
Yeah,
closure, which is pretty much
Which is great.
the best you can hope for.
Man, and
that situation.
I used to be such a UK Office stan that, I was just like, no, I'm not going to watch the US Office. I love the UK Office. It's amazing. It's so uniquely British as a concept, but it turns out it's really not. Like this workplace comedy environment can be adapted, and which is why it has been adapted to so many different countries, languages, blah, blah, blah. We have an Indian office as well, which is there on Hotstar and stuff, though it was not really my speed, but the fact that it's being translated
It wasn't
into
bad, I thought, yeah.
Yeah, it was that's been translated into so many different languages. I think it's like a universal story which you can everybody has worked in
I
an
think
office.
it's because it's not really the story as much as it's creating an environment,
Exactly,
which is
yeah.
irrelevant really. You're just saying, here's a workplace,
Yeah,
and now
exactly,
it's a
the
paper
workplace.
sales company, so it's
It could be-
not
it
even
could be
relevant in
paper,
2019
it could be paper,
possibly.
It could be crayons. It
Could be
anything you want.
anything.
It doesn't matter.
But the idea is, let's get a bunch of interesting characters in the room and have them interact. And I think that's what the US Office did particularly well because they cast spectacularly.
Yeah, very
and then they worked with the actors to develop characters. So as the show went on, it only became better. So a lot of the cast
were writers on the show. They directed the episodes
Exactly.
as well.
Some of them
Yeah.
came
Well,
on board.
unlike the UK one, like with most US iterations of shows versus the UK iteration, it's a much longer show, right?
Yeah.
More episodes in a season, more seasons. Therefore, you have more time to sit with the character, and therefore, you have the ability to say the writers who started the US run can take a seat back and let John Krasinski try to direct or write an episode because he's earned it. He's been around long enough now. He probably gets the character as well as, if not better than the writers themselves. But you can't do that in a UK run when it's only 6 episodes because, well, that's as long
true.
as it takes to get into the character. And by
That's
the time
how
you sit in,
UK shows
it's
are
done.
written from the start, I believe. They're very focused on the creator and what they do, as opposed to US shows which have more of a writer's room environment.
Well, I think it's also because the show itself was around for how many seasons? 8, 9 seasons, something like that.
Something like that,
Yeah, and the writers' room is always going to keep changing, but the cast is more or less been there for such a long time that they have a definitive.
It's inevitable. They will figure it out better than anyone
Exactly,
else because
yeah.
they're the ones doing it.
They shifted
Literally
showrunners
living
at
with
one
it.
point as well.
But now, can I present a strange one? Why do you think it's
Present
The
away,
Office
Jishnu.
that has been so successful at being recreated, and that's the show that people are now saying is the biggest one out there, as opposed to a Friends, which arguably at the time was bigger than Office in its heyday, right?
Yeah.
When Friends was on, it was doing better than I think The Office did when it was on. However, even though Friends is still being watched a lot, it's The Office that is getting the bigger buzz, and that's the one that people are still to this day recreate. Why aren't we getting a Friends recreation in India? Why are we getting an Office one?
Well, I think the Friends. I think Friends and The Office both share this whole comfort.
They do.
Food kind of viewing, but The Office is just a lot more relevant to our generation. I think the jokes are far more current and like that. I mean, we were talking
Yeah.
about like the number of memes and gifs that have been made out of it. I think it's just a lot more like our colloquialisms and
Exactly.
stuff like that. So that's why
you
it's
wouldn't
still very
see a
relevant.
Friends GIF around as
I
much
mean,
as
you
you
do,
see an
but
Office
it's
GIF
not-
around.
yeah, but
exactly.
it's-
It's not the same
because
thing,
Friends
right?
is
more-
a little too like New York centric.
No,
it's a little too specific.
It is,
to
and it's
that-
also
Yes.
quite
to
dated,
that
man. I don't think
demographic.
it's aged well. I mean, like for me, it's not. Friends has not aged well. I watch it because it's like nostalgia watching. It's not. It's not like, oh, I love this joke. I mean, like obviously the acting is great and stuff and that. But like Friends for me is like, okay, cool. It's on a television in a hotel room. Before I pass out,
I
I'm gonna
feel like
watch
if it
and
was
I'm gonna see
if it was a show more along the lines of The Office, where the characters were different,
Yeah, very
in a more
diverse kind
significant
of-
way, I would
yeah,
say
yeah.
that it would still hold up. But with Friends, if you take aside like the superficial characteristics of like, sure, Chandler's a sarcastic guy, Monica's a clean freak, they all are the same kind of person with the same kind of goal, right? They're like young 20-somethings looking for love and looking for friendship or whatever.
Yes.
On The Office, you have a character like a Phyllis, for example.
Yeah,
She's like total wildcard, who's had entire episodes where she's been the focus, who doesn't really want anything.
Right.
And like her wedding, where she marries like a super rich guy who's just the nicest,
Yeah.
who works in the same building as is super rich, is a really good episode because you're like, I'm looking into the life of someone who I'm not like, but I still really like, right? Which is why I think The Office kind of has more staying power in
has more to
hindsight.
give.
Yeah,
Definitely.
it has more to give. So like while Jim and Pam are the obvious
Well, Jim and Pam are like the audience's like characters.
they're
Like you
typically-
are like everybody
they're the
knows that
most
they want to
normal
be Jim,
people.
right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
But with The Office, you have the diversity of someone like a Creed, who's just like a total
Yeah.
like weirdo.
Weirdo,
You have like a
Ryan.
Stanley who doesn't care about anything. But literally every single one of these characters have an entire arc over the course of the show. Like Stanley going from not caring about anything to admitting that he kind of cares about the people in the office is actually like a really heartwarming
It's very
moment.
It is
endearing.
just, I think, simply a lot more subtle in the best ways possible. I forget where I heard this, but it was pretty eye-opening. Somebody once said that you can probably watch any episode of Friends on mute,
And still
even if you
understand.
haven't seen the episode.
Malcolm Gladwell said that.
Malcolm Gladwell
yeah,
said
in
that,
his about his new
and
book.
I think that's a great point. Because they're so over the top with the way they react to everything that it's kind of like it's almost constantly farcical, even though it's not. It is a little.
It's very unrealistic in the way that
unrealistic, I
people
guess,
behave. Like,
But I
like
mean, so is The Office, except they just do it.
Yeah.
I think
with a
you know what
better
really
hand.
helps
It's
also
more-
is this
it's a more
whole
delicate hand.
the fly on the wall, this whole cinema verite,
The mockumentary.
mockumentary style is so cool because it's like you're actually seeing what is. I mean, like, why is this crew shooting the most mundane reality? And why are they obsessed with these characters? You don't really need to know, but you're just getting this like, oh, they're doing like. The idea that the show is proposing is that these people are important enough for us to kind of view into their lives, but they're really not. They're just like the most mundane but bizarre characters, and they just happen to be whimsically like funny and weird. And I think that's far more closer to reality for us. That we know, I'm sure we can point out, everybody who's worked in an office can say, oh, this guy's the dark one, this guy's the weird one, this guy's like the weird sense of humor, blah, 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 or somebody's a Michael Scott. I think that's just like far more relatable. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
To that end, the newest bit of Office that you can consume, I guess, rather than just watching the whole thing all over again, is Pam and Angela have a new podcast. Very
Love
exciting
podcasts.
stuff. We love
Jenna
podcasts.
Fisher and Angela Kinsey.
Yes.
It's called The Office Ladies.
Yeah.
And it's basically them just watching the show and talking about the show. It's
Great
a director's
talking.
commentary,
That's
but
insane,
with actors.
right?
I don't know
That's
why this hasn't
insane.
happened before. It seems like such a no-brainer.
I think that's probably
director's
what we
commentary
were
has
Because
been a thing.
podcasts weren't as
Why
big a
an
deal in
actor's commentary?
2013, I suppose.
Yeah, and I think this perspective, I think, is very relevant for this show in particular, given the fact that it's been going on for so long. And like we said, they eventually handed over the reins in various episodes to actors, and the actors got a lot more to say in it. So like having their insight, I imagine by like season 5, 6, 7 is going to be really impactful rather than like I can imagine like the first season is going to be like, oh, I remember my first day, it was like a new school and we were meeting each other, we didn't know what to do, and like there's a guy telling us, okay, now you deliver the dry line. No, deliver it drier. No, drier please. No, that's too dry. Cool, let's move on. But by like season 5, they would probably have things to say like, well, the script said so, but yeah. And that
maybe.
completely turned the winds towards the plot changing and things like that, which is great.
Because I feel like these behind the scenes stories could be really interesting.
Yeah.
Well, to that end, if you're the kind of person who, well, is still binging on The Office and potentially listening to a brand new podcast about The Office, how about you buy some stuff like these things and others?
Yeah.
All this and more on the Fanhood store. Bye, you nerds.